Hello, hello, friends. I need you to get out page 627 in your Go Math book. Of course, put your name at the top and the date. April 24th, 2020. All right. So we're going to change up this first page here. So down at the bottom, you can just scribble that out because we're going to talk about it. All right. So let's pretend that I measure from our classroom door. So here's our classroom door. Okay. To, right in our classroom, to Amelia's desk, which is right here. And first off, so there's my distance from the classroom door to Amelia's desk. And at first, I measure in meters. So I measure the number of meters it is from Amelia's desk. Well, from the classroom door to Amelia's desk. All right. So first off, I measure in meters. And then I measure in decimeters. Okay. So I just use this one little decimeter and measure in decimeters. So go ahead and write that down. So make sure you have all this written down. Now here's the question. Here's a big thing that Go Math keeps going over and over and over again. And when we do the end of year tests, like other years, not this year, but when we do the end of the year tests, a lot of kids get this wrong on the School City. And it says, are we going to have more meters? Are we going to be using more meters? Or are we going to be using more decimeters when we make that measurement? And the answer is that we're going to be using more decimeters because it is a smaller amount. So I'm going to need more of them. Right? So our answer is I will use more decimeters. I will use more decimeters because it is, here I'm going to do this, because a decimeter, okay, because this is DM for decimeter, because a decimeter is smaller than a meter. Now here's another trick question that we see a lot on some of the end of year tests is it will say, will you be using a fewer number of decimeters or a fewer number of meters to measure this distance? We'll be using a fewer, will you be using a fewer number of decimeters or a fewer number of meters? And of course, in this case, we'd say we're using a fewer number of meters because they take up more space. So I'm going to use fewer meters to get that distance measured. So fewer meters. So just have all of that written down. Hit pause if you need more time to finish that up. We're going to go on to the next side. Okay, I'm taking a look at 628. It says here at the top, a meter is the same as 100 centimeters. We know that. The real door, and they say real door because they don't want you to think we're talking about the size of this picture. The real door is about 200 centimeters tall. The real door is also about 2 meters tall. And remember, about we use when we're making estimates, so it's not exact, but it's close. So, like we did when we were doing US customary system, you are going to pick some things around your house to measure. So I'm sure you have a chair at your house to measure. So you're going to measure that distance in meters and then figure out how many centimeters that would be. This is going to be a lot easier than the US customary system. Remember, we had to make that whole chart that said 1 foot is 12 inches, 2 feet is 24 inches. We had to memorize our 12 times tables. Well, with the metric system, it's easy. So automatically, you know that, well, if something is 2 meters, it's 200 centimeters. Or if something is 5 meters, it's 500 centimeters. So it's much easier with the metric system. I'm sure you have a chair. Everyone has a wall at their house. Everyone, I'm sure, has some sort of a desk at their house. So it doesn't have to be my desk unless you want to pretend you're the teacher. So you are going to do 628. Okay, 629. Name at the top. Date. 24th. Again, you don't have a chalkboard? Measure a mirror. Pick something else to measure. You can measure a bookshelf. I'm sure you probably have a bookshelf at your house, and I'm sure everyone has some sort of a table at their house. So you're going to do those measurements. You can go ahead if you want to and hit pause while you're doing those measurements and then come back and hit play, and I'll go over the rest of the page with you. The Go Deeper section says, write these lengths in order from shortest, underline shortest, to longest. So we're starting with the smallest amount first. So what's the smallest amount here? 200 centimeters, 10 meters, or 1 meter? You decide. Okay. When you're making your list, you are going to write one of these down. Then you need to put a comma between them. Write one down. Put a comma between them. Okay. On the back. We have Mr. Ryan. And this is also a math on the spot you can watch. With Jeannie, Mr. Ryan walked next to a barn. He wants to measure the length of the barn. So he's going to measure from here to here. That's going to give him the length of the barn. Would the length be a greater number of centimeters or a greater number of meters? Okay, so there's our question. Would the length be a greater number of centimeters or a greater number of meters? Let's answer this in a complete sentence. Okay, starting with the length would be a greater Okay, the length would be a greater number of blank. Okay, the length would be a greater number of blank. So you're measuring the length of the barn from here to here. You measure it in centimeters. You measure it in meters. Are you going to have a greater number of centimeters, or are you going to have a greater number of meters? Okay, so you're going to fill that in. The length would be a greater number of blank because, and that's the explain your answer. You need to explain why and put a period at the end. Okay. Clue word, barn. Right? So get that written down. Clue word, barn. Okay. For number 9, you just fill in what makes sense. If centimeters is going to fit in the sentence, or if meters is going to fit in the sentence. So a bench is 2 centimeters long. I don't think so, unless it's a bench for some ants. Okay. So no, a bench is definitely going to be 2 meters long. Finish up this page. Check to make sure it is all done. Okay, so you're going to check like we do in class. Make sure everything's finished and you're not skipping stuff. All right. Then you are going to put the pages together, starting with 627 on the top. Okay, and then 628 here on the back, 629. Put a staple right in that upper left-hand corner. And make sure it's all finished. Last clue word right here. There's your clue word. Okay. Good work, friends. See you soon.